Hi everyone, and welcome to our 30-minute webinar on driving digital transformation for universities with Adobe Sign. I'm Rebecca Harris. I'm going to take you through a whistle-stop tour on how Adobe Sign can help to drive huge benefits throughout your entire organization. A little bit later, I'm going to be joined by Steve Walker for a high-level look at the Adobe Sign platform. This webinar is for anyone wanting to understand how eliminating paper and using electronic forms and signatures can help your organization to drive document efficiencies, how you can use workflows to automate your current processes, how you can cut costs, and more importantly, how Adobe can help you to deliver an excellent digital experience for your staff and for your students. But first, let's look at some of the drivers for change. Perhaps your university is looking to reduce costs. Perhaps your university is looking to simply deliver an excellent experience. Perhaps it's a multitude of things on here, and these are some of the reasons why Adobe customers use Adobe Sign. Perhaps we're building a greener society and you want to use Adobe Sign to help you reduce the amount of paperwork printed each year. It will probably be no surprise to most of you that 80% of document processes still rely on paperwork. What does that mean for an organization? Well, what it means is that there's a huge opportunity to eliminate paper, to drive efficiencies throughout the business, to increase data security. A study from IDC on business leaders said that 30% of business leaders thought that a worker's time could be freed by automating things like document routing, signing and approvals, status tracking, and archiving. If you think about how some of these processes in your own organization are really affected by, let's take status tracking, for example. How often do you spend in your organization chasing down a document, chasing down information from a document, chasing down an approval or a signature? Then we look at archiving. How much time is in your organization is spent collating information from a document? Perhaps you're then scanning it back in, perhaps you're opening the post and uploading that document to your digital vault. The study also said that a third of organizational leaders also claim problems with things like missing signatures, missing initials or dates, or perhaps it's been signed by the wrong person. We know that a lot of universities, some of the challenges that come from them are things like you might have a signature on a document, but you might have missing information. Perhaps this is from a new candidate, perhaps it's from a student. A lot of the time, you might have captured the signature on a document, but perhaps they've missed out important information like their bank details or their national insurance number or their right to work. And the last one on here, nearly 2/3 of business leaders say that gaps in automation and integration are really impacting the quality of the end user experience. And that's when we start to think about existing technology investments that you've already made to bring your organization into the cloud. And then if you're expecting somebody to print out a piece of paper, to sign something, and to then post it back in, you're not really completing that last digital mile. Electronically signed documents are returned on average 21 times faster than with paper. A survey of Adobe Sign customers said that on average, they see a 30% reduction in costs. Now, costs can be a number of different things. We can look at hard costs like postage, printing, paperwork, but perhaps there's other costs associated as well. And then that's when we start to look at things like employee time and the admin efficiencies around documents and how many hours are going into tracking a document down, interacting with a document, perhaps taking data out of one document and putting it into another system. And from those customers, 383% on average see a return on investment. Now, we've got a number of different customers around the globe, and I wanted to put some examples on here. I won't run through them all today, but you'll see here that we don't just focus on universities. There are large organizations, even throughout the UK, that are using Adobe Sign in their contracting department, in their procurement department, in their HR departments. Let's take a quick look at Iowa State University. Now, this customer has used Adobe in conjunction with a number of different technologies that they've already invested in. So they're using the Adobe Document Cloud, but they're also using technologies like Microsoft SharePoint, Teams, and Microsoft Flow. They were using Adobe Sign to help with the compliance aspect of taking donations into the organization. And by using Adobe Sign, they are able to shorten the sales cycle approval by 13 days. They were also able to reduce their cost by 30%. I put a link on here for anyone that wants these Spark pages after I've finished this webinar. Happy to send them out to you and you can take a look at these in more detail. One of the important aspects of Adobe Sign is the idea of a template and a workflow. It's not often in a large organization such as a university that there'll only be one person in a signature workflow or an approval workflow. Especially when you perhaps have got different campuses, perhaps your university has got different offices around the globe. And this is when we start to use the workflows to really drive the document efficiencies. So in this example, we've got one or even two approvers internally of a document. Once they've approved a document, then it automatically routes on to the next person, who may be a form filler in this case. Once that person has filled out the form, that document automatically routes on to somebody that has to sign a document. Perhaps that's a student or a supplier or a candidate. And once that person has then signed the document, we then have the final piece of the workflow when perhaps it comes back into the university and you have two more signatures there. Perhaps it's a counter signature. Steve Walker is going to take a look at this in a little bit more detail in his demo a bit later on. As you would imagine, Adobe Sign complies with a number of different standards and laws throughout the world. You've got a couple on here. ISO 27001 is a highlight. EIDAS law is the law that governs European signatures in the European area. That's what we comply with. At its core, Adobe Sign is a cloud-based electronic signature service. It allows you to send and receive documents from anywhere on any device. So let's take a look at how Adobe Sign is being used in universities. Now there's loads of use cases here and I haven't put all of them down, but I've grouped them into two different areas, and one of them is what we call the front office. What we mean by that is that anything that is external facing, so anything that might have to, a document processor might have to interact with a student or suppliers or partners. These are some of the examples that our existing customers are using Adobe Sign for. Anything where there's an application, anything to do with consent, any housing services, any tenancies, any childcare forms. And these documents don't just have to be sent out by the university. They could be processes that are accessed by students on your website, because Adobe Sign can plug into that. Perhaps you've got an app that requires signatures as well. Adobe Sign can use our APIs to plug into those services as well. And don't forget, this isn't just about capturing signatures. This is about asking for additional information as well. Then we look at the back office. Every organization has a back office function. And what we mean by back office, we're talking about HR is an example here, and I've left you with the Telefonica case study. But we also start to look at things like IT internally. Are there change requests? Are there travel requests? We start to look at procurement, legal. Anyone that's got conferencing solutions or takes payments for perhaps their events. Adobe Sign is more than just a signature. Adobe Sign can be used in a number of different ways, and it's not always that we have to capture a signature. It might be that you need important data filled out in a form, and once that data comes back in, we need to take the data and update your existing systems with that data. It might mean that you just need somebody to be a certified recipient of a document, and the audit trail with Adobe Sign will enable you to do that and to have that process in place. Steve's going to touch on this a little bit more in his demo. We have a number of different integrations with Adobe Sign, but Microsoft is our strategic partner globally, and we are Microsoft's preferred supplier when it comes to electronic signatures. There's a number of different solutions that we can use out-of-the-box integrations with Microsoft. I've just put a couple on here. SharePoint is one of those. We know that a lot of people use SharePoint to send out agreements or to store agreements. Adobe Sign can be used at both the beginning and the end of those processes to automatically route documents back internally. Here's just some of the others that we have out-of-the-box integrations with. Again, if anyone wants any more information on these, do get in touch with myself or Steve, and we'll be happy to share some use cases and examples with you. Another university example now is Pace University. And this one's an interesting one because they haven't just used Adobe Sign, but they've used Adobe Sign with their existing Acrobat investment. If anyone's using Acrobat to send out forms or documents, why not add the capability of Adobe Sign around that like Pace University has? Pace University were able to save 100,000 pages being printed a week, which is obviously cutting down on their costs, but it also helps with their corporate social responsibility strategy as well. I'm now going to hand over to Steve for a closer look on Adobe Sign Platform.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Walker, and I am a solutions consultant here at Adobe, specializing in Adobe Sign. It's my job today to go through a high-level overview of the platform and show how we envisage Adobe Sign being used within universities. So here is the Adobe Sign web portal. This is an Adobe hosted website that we would be logging into using a username and a password. This is what we'll be doing for the demonstration today. I will move on to some of our integrations a little bit later, but for anyone who's not seen electronic signatures before using Adobe Sign, our web portal is the best place to start with. For anyone who has not seen Adobe Sign before, this send screen can seem a little daunting at first. Let me break down the boxes that we see on this screen here and show you all the individual ingredients that go together to build what we call an Adobe Sign transaction. First of all, we need to identify our signers, so who it is that will be signing this document. And we can set some additional settings on these people as well, so we'll come on to those a little bit in just a second. Once we've defined who, we then need to define the name of the agreement, so what it is that they're going to be signing, plus a brief message to that person as well, explaining why they've received it and maybe some instructions about how they can go about completing it. On the right, we can set some options on this one transaction here. So it's things like setting a password perhaps, or if we need a signature before a certain deadline, that can be set here too. And finally, we upload our files. And notice that's files plural. We can have multiple different files, mixing and matching file types. And what you will always get back at the end of the process is a multi-page encrypted PDF with all of the signatures inside. So let's now jump over to my live environment here. And you will notice that I have the branding in the top left-hand corner of my web portal has been changed. I've created a fictional university. We're calling this the eSign University, and the custom logo has been added in the top left-hand corner there. I'm going to enter in 2 email addresses here into our recipients field, and this is going to simulate a process of a student applying for a place on a university course, and they're going to be filling out a first-year admission applications form. The first signer will be our applicant in this case, and in second place, we will be having some internal approval on the application form taking place. So I'm going to choose the approver role for our second person here internally at the eSign University. If we needed to prove that our applicant that we're sending this out to is indeed who they say they are, and this has been filled out by the correct person, we can employ one of our authentication options here using the drop down. Stuff like having someone receive an SMS to a mobile device perhaps, or we can force someone to sign into an Adobe Sign account if that's required. We'll keep it simple today and we'll just leave it as email authentication. Let's put a private message to John Smythe, our internal approval here at the eSign University. I'm going to ask him to please approve so that he understands what's happening in this case. Our applicant in signer number 1's place will not see that private message there. Let's add our form. So I press on the blue Add Files link here, and we get a number of different sources where we're able to get files from. I can browse from this computer or get documents from a number of different cloud sources. In this occasion, I have added to my library the university enrollment form here. And the library is a great capability in Adobe Sign. If you use forms on a regular basis, get them stored into this library, and they are shared within all of your team, and they can access this as a central repository of your approved forms. Let's open this up, get it attached. I'll just show you very quickly what it looks like. This is a form 2-pager that I've created for the fictional eSign University, and it was created using Adobe Acrobat Pro. So this is an Acrobat form field where what we've done is we've added different layers of form fields on here, asking people to enter in details. We've got checkboxes, radio buttons, and we're even going to be asked to upload a photograph of our students' head and shoulders. Going back to Adobe Sign though, what we probably want to do is we want to remind our student that they need to be filling this out. So I'm going to put a reminder for every business day here. And what will happen is they'll be receiving an email at that frequency, politely guiding them through to completing their form. Everything looks good here. Let's scroll down. I do not need to preview because the form fields have already been added in Acrobat. We do not need to check it. Everything is okay. We can simply press send and this will go out for signature to our first signer. Let's now jump over and see what our applicant sees inside of their email inbox. And you can see they have an email from Adobe Sign, and it's explaining to them that they need to sign the university enrollment form. So we open up the email, and you can see that I've sent someone a university enrollment form to fill out. We get a nice preview of the first page of the document, and we also get the branding which I added to the email account here. So you'll see that it looks like it's come from this university, further strengthening your brand there. With these email templates, we can remove all mentions of Adobe Sign. We can even add in a custom footer as well, should that be needed. And we get our message pulling through nicely. Please review and complete the form. Clicking on our link, our applicant is taken straight through to the page where they can fill and sign their form. So this is the Adobe Sign signing screen, and you'll notice there that our applicant was taken straight through to this page. We don't force anyone to sign up for an account with Adobe Sign. You can see our applicant here has 23 required fields. In order to get this complete, let's get this done really quickly. I'm going to fill this out as myself. Male, 06 10 1988, and you'll notice that we're getting really nice tooltips popping up which I've added to the form, making it a really nice experience here, easy to fill out and preventing those mistakes from happening. And you'll notice that my email address has been added in for me automatically. This is because we sent this via an email. Of course, Adobe Sign knows what that person's email address is. That's been added in automatically. Now, an example of data validation that we can have on the data capture here is that we can have Adobe Sign check for the pattern of an email address. So if we enter in something that doesn't match the pattern of an email address here and try to leave focus of that field, you will notice that it is giving us an error message here. And we simply wouldn't be able to submit this if this error still persisted. So we need to make sure that a correct email address is added, and we are now allowed to leave this field. My ethnicity here has been added. That is a radio button. Moving on to page 2 now, we need to, on the left-hand side, make a selection as to how we heard about this course. What we can do down at the bottom, you'll notice that there is Other, please specify. And if I check the box next to Other, we've got a new field that appears to the right of that. We can enter in the method of how I heard this course as an Other. And if I simply change my mind, I can uncheck the box and you will see that that field disappears again from view. This is what's known as a calculated field, and what we can have is conditional logic showing and hiding different sections of an Adobe Sign form based on some logic further up inside an Adobe Sign form here. Very, very powerful stuff. Okay, now we're being asked to upload our student ID photograph. And you'll notice here that actually our student ID has been created dynamically for us. Everything that we enter in further up, I'll just prove that now, change my first name to Steve. Scrolling down, that has dynamically changed now to say Steve. I'm going to go back and change that to my full name. So one last required field, let's click on this box to upload our head and shoulders photograph. And we're going to be taken to a place where we're allowed to choose where we want our files to be sourced from. I've got a file on this laptop and I've got a head and shoulders photograph ready and waiting. That's now been added to the form. That's looking good for me there. Let's scroll down. Finally, we've got an example of some checkboxes that are checked by default, which is what we're able to do in Adobe Sign as well. We can certainly uncheck the ones that we do not want relevant to us. Our last and final required field is that we need to sign our document. So if we click on the box, we're presented with the 4 options for signing. Using Adobe Sign, the first option we can have is to type our name using the keyboard on this laptop. The second of which is to draw my signature using the mouse or the trackpad. We can upload an image to represent our signature, maybe take a photograph of a scan of a wet ink piece of paper with our signature on. We can use that. And finally, we can send an SMS to a mobile device. Might feel more natural to turn that device sideways, sign using your finger. The signature comes immediately back to this laptop, so we're able to continue. What I will do is I will draw my signature and I will also enter in my name as well. Press apply and our form filling is now complete. That brings my involvement to this process to completion. It's now been sent to John Smythe internally at the university in order to approve this form. Let's jump over and see what he sees in his inbox. Once again, John Smythe has an email. This time he's being asked to approve this enrolment form. Notice that the subject line and the messaging is slightly different on this occasion. Because John has been set to an approver, his wording is slightly different. Once again, clicks to sign, always taken straight through to the signing screen. Adobe Sign has made use of Acrobat form fields that use a combination of a certain number of characters. And what Adobe Sign will do is it will evenly space out the text that is entered in the forms, so we get this really, really nice effect here. So it looks really, really neat when that comes through back to you as signed. Everything looks good here. Notice I cannot change any of this. This has all been flattened. As John Smythe here, he's simply able to read one required field, and that is, of course, where he needs to check and sign to make sure he gives his approval. His box is on the right-hand side here. Click to sign, and that is now complete. Let's have a look at some of the emails I've been receiving in the background here. Back as Steve Walker now, the initiator of this process. And this is our signed and filed email. This is the notification that tells us that all of the signatures and the form filling has taken place. Documents reach the end of the process. The default behavior is to have Adobe Sign look after these documents safely and securely inside of my account. But what Adobe Sign has done on this occasion has added an attachment to this email. The signed document is attached as a PDF. We double click it to get this opened up. And I am viewing this in Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. And what we get along the top of the bar with all documents that come out of Adobe Sign is that they are certified. And the blue bar along the top will tell you that this is a secure, encrypted PDF, the contents of which have not been modified in any way. And there is a certificate attached to this as well. You'll notice that the data that's been entered in is actually live text, so I can select it and copy it out should I need to. Again, we do have that really nice spacing going on here, so it respects the spaces inside of the box of the underlying form here. That was using a combination of feature inside of Acrobat. Scrolling down, the checkboxes look good. Everything's good here. My student ID has been created really nicely for me here. You will get access to that JPEG that was provided, and you can extract that using your Adobe Sign Manage page, or we can use the API to automatically strip that out if you needed to have the raw file that was provided at time of signing. Everything looks good. Our 2 signatures are here, fantastic. But what Adobe Sign's done for us is it has appended a page 3 to this agreement. And the final page is what we call our audit report. And the audit report details all of the events that took place in this transaction here. On these audit reports, we've got dates and times. We've got email addresses, of course, of our recipients. But you'll notice here that we've also got IP addresses as well of the devices that we use to sign. And also, if one of our signers were to be using the Adobe Sign mobile app, we will also pop up and ask permission to capture the GPS coordinates. It's these audit reports that you require should any of these signatures be challenged in a court of law. And we've got all the little bits of evidence here that can go together to say, right, okay, Adobe can stand with you to say that we were able to capture Steve Walker's intent here to fill out and sign our document and John Smythe's intent to give his approval. I'd now like to switch gears and talk about the Adobe Sign Workflow Designer for a minute here. It's a really powerful capability where we're able to drive efficiencies in everyday business processes. And the business process I've chosen today is the HR new hire scenario. The Adobe Sign Workflow Designer, as you can see here, has a 6-step wizard-style process in order to build a workflow ready for use inside of your organization. So after you've given your workflow a name and some brief instructions to the sender, you can choose who it's active for. So for example, this is an HR specific workflow, perhaps not relevant to sales or any other faculties within the university. You can simply make it enabled for only certain groups of users within your account. Enter some info in step 2 here, but it's really step 3 where the workflow designer comes into its own here. And using this HR new hire process example, you can see that we have a really nice family tree style flowchart showing the flow of the document once it is sent for signature. And you can see the candidate will be signing first and the hire manager in second place. Adobe Sign Workflows also have support for the roles as well. So using the orange icon you can see here, this denotes that our senior manager is set as an approver on this occasion. And it's also great that we're able to give each of our recipients a label too, so it's really clear what role they will be playing inside of our process. So switching over to what this workflow looks like on the front end, if you now save this and activate it, when someone goes to trigger it, it looks like this. Very similar to our send screen, but you will see here that a lot of the details have been added in for us automatically. The hiring manager's email address is in and the senior manager's email address is already in. We don't have to type that. We can change it should this person be on holiday, but in order to trigger this, all we require is just the candidate's email and then perhaps choose one of our authentication options from the drop down. Everything else, the document name, the message, and the document itself has already been added. It's been hard-coded into this Adobe Sign workflow, and we're free now just to press the send button to get that immediately sent for signature. Here I am back on the home screen of the Adobe Sign web portal. And another one of our capabilities that we have is what we call the Adobe Sign Mega Sign capability. And this will allow you to send out a document to many hundreds, sometimes thousands of recipients at once using a CSV distribution list. And the use case for this may very well be if you need to send a document out for signature to perhaps all students in the university, or maybe just all faculty members for a particular department within a university, perhaps maybe a policy change that needs sign off on by large groups of recipients. Opening up the MegaSign option from the home screen, what we can do is upload a CSV distribution list of all of our recipients. And each of the columns of the CSV can also have custom bespoke data as well that can be merged in to the fields within your document. So each of your recipients can receive a custom bespoke document that has data inside it that is specific to them. Very powerful stuff here, and this is what we call the Adobe Sign Mega Sign capability. The final thing I'd like to speak about today is to give you a very quick demonstration of Adobe Sign for Microsoft Office. I am inside of a Word document, and Adobe Sign for Microsoft Office has been installed, and you can see the option to send for signature is up in the ribbon here. If I click send for signature, the Adobe Sign panel appears on the right hand side. The document that I'm using, you can see here, has text tags been added in so that our form fields will be added in for us. So we're simply now free to send this out for signature. I can enter in some recipients here. All of the functionality that you saw inside of the web portal is replicated inside of Adobe Sign for Microsoft Office. Pressing on the blue send button will send this out for signature. If you did not, however, have any fields on your document, we can preview and you can drag and drop your fields in exactly the same way. But you can see the text in red here has been added, and this is Adobe Sign's text tags, adding the signature boxes in automatically. If we wanted to track an agreement that's currently out for signature, we can choose the agreement status option, and you get a snapshot in the right-hand side here of all of the documents that are currently out for signature inside your account. And all of this tracking can be done without leaving your favorite Office application. And that now concludes our look at Adobe Sign for use within universities. On behalf of Rebecca and myself, we'd like to thank you very much for watching, and please do reach out to us if you have any questions.